No remorse, courtroom defiance from the murderer who killed in the name of religion. Tanvir Ahmed drove from Yorkshire to Glasgow to kill a shopkeeper he said had disrespected Islam. Asad Shah, described as a pillar of the local community, was stabbed to death outside his store.
This was a barbaric, premeditated and wholly unjustified killing.
Also tonight, new age of open banking, but does it go far enough and is it safe?
Welcome to Rio. Bolt enters the spirit of Brazil and vows to win 3 more goals.
And welcome to Manchester. United get their man at last for a world record fee.
This is the ITV Evening News with Mark Austin and Mary Nightingale.
Good evening. It was a murder inspired by religious bigotry and carried out with cold-blooded ruthlessness. Today, Tanvir Ahmed was sentenced to a minimum of 27 years for what the judge called a brutal, barbaric, horrific crime, the killing of a kindly shopkeeper who had, in the murderer's own warped view, disrespected the Muslim faith.
Ahmed drove 200 miles from Bradford to Glasgow with the specific aim of confronting Asad Shah and stabbing him to death. And he showed no remorse in court, giving a clenched fist salute as he was led away. Our Scotland correspondent Peter Smith reports.
And grace of beloved Creator. Morning.
20 minutes, please.
How are you doing?
Not bad, thanks. How are you?
Good, thank you.
In between serving customers, Asad Shah made internet videos in which he claimed to be the prophet of a new religion.
We have to unite all beloved mankind.
Few ever saw these videos, but Tanvir Ahmed was watching. This CCTV footage shows Ahmed inside the Glasgow shop on the night of the murder. He'd just driven for 4 hours and he told Asad Shah, "I'm here to kill you." Cameras were allowed in court today where Ahmed was sentenced to life with a minimum of 27 years.
This was a brutal, barbaric and horrific crime resulting from intolerance and which led to the death of a wholly innocent man who openly expressed beliefs which differed from yours.
Before being led away to begin his sentence, Ahmed shouted out in court praise to the Prophet. Several of his supporters who'd travelled up from Bradford chanted it back.
He's respecting his Prophet, he's saying I love my Prophet. What's wrong with that?
Do you think the sentence was fair?
No.
At Asad Shah's former mosque in Glasgow, the Imam told me it is worrying that so many are openly supporting a murderer.
They can also radicalise other youngsters. Let's see if he has given, he has given this sacrifice for the cause of the Prophet. Others can also follow.
Do you fear that something like this could happen again?
Certainly, most certainly it will happen.
Police Scotland say they hope today's sentencing will provide reassurance to communities here, but the reaction from Ahmed and his supporters has created fear that this is not the end of vigilante justice. Well, when Tanvir Ahmed showed that act of defiance, the judge said it was not only concerning that he was showing a lack of remorse, but he was seemingly proud of what he'd done, and his supporters left here also unrepentant. Meanwhile, Asad Shah's family were not here today. They've had to close their family shop, and they now say they're considering leaving the country.
All right, Peter, thank you very much indeed.
Proposals were unveiled today for a major shake-up of high street banking, aimed at giving people more control over where they keep their money. The financial watchdog wants banks to let customers shop around more easily for better deals on things like overdraft charges. Our consumer editor Chris Choi reports on the advantages and the drawbacks of the so-called drive towards open banking.
For 2 years, Britain's biggest banks have been the focus of an investigation. Today, it reported that they make £1.2 billion a year just from unarranged overdraft charges. And to reduce that, officials propose a banking revolution. James Martin is just the type of customer it's designed to help.
£200 a month in interest and charges. It's the difference between eating, going out, the difference from being able to afford to get to work.
In today's report, competition officials said only 3% of us switch banks each year. They're now requiring a system where rival banks, comparison sites and financial advisors could see your personal data to decide if you could get a better deal. It would only happen with your permission. You could also have the information on a phone app to help manage your money.
In the past, switching bank accounts.
Despite switching campaigns, the big four bank groups still have a whopping 77% of the market. But consumer campaigners warn that this idea of data swapping won't work if it's not trusted.
There should be standards set around who and how people can access your data to make sure that it's clear who's liable if there is a problem or if there's a data breach.
Mr. Wadsworth, when customers come to you for loans, how do you explain your refusal?
First of all, we try not to refuse, but...
In the 1950s, banking was always face-to-face, but over the years things have changed. And now digital transactions are common, but the system officials are proposing today would go much further. What evidence have you got that customers would be willing to share their most sensitive financial information in this way?
They need to have the same degree of confidence that they have in their bank.
But the systems don't exist to give them that confidence.
But the systems can be developed. That's what's going to be done.
Big banks have been spared price caps. Instead, a banking revolution is promised, but it's based on systems not yet even developed.
OK, so banking revolution, you say, but how are they actually going to make that accessible for everybody?
I think that's the toughie. Some of the consumer groups and debt charities I've spoken to today are worried that that whole plan will only really help the most financially savvy and computer literate, in other words, the people that should be last in line for the kind of help that they're aiming for. What these officials have done is taken a pile of money complexity and add to it technical complexity. Add to that the various concerns about privacy and security, and you can see why a lot of customers will want to have nothing to do with this plan that's actually taken 2 years to achieve and £5 million of taxpayers' money.
OK, Chris, thank you.
Now, the biggest star of Olympic sport rolled into Rio today for a press conference like no other. Usain Bolt, the fastest man on earth, announced his arrival with music, samba dancers and bold predictions of what's to come. Team GB's start to the Games has been marred by a clutch of near misses, but today the latest medalists have been reflecting on their success and how bronze felt a lot like gold. Our sports editor Steve Scott reports from Rio.
They've only been together for less than a year, so squeezing into third place made Tom Daley and Dan Goodfellow's achievement even more special.
That weight actually on the pool side felt like eternity, but when obviously number 3 came up on the scoreboard, it was amazing.
Their podium finish followed similar success for farmer Ed Ling in the trap shooting. He can't hang around to celebrate though. He's needed in Somerset.
I just want to get back home now, get back on the farm and help bring the harvest in.
Elsewhere, though, it's been a tale of disappointment and near misses. Lewis Smith, who changed his routine seconds before competing, came unstuck. Britain's medal chances fell away with him. And today, the equestrian team finished 5th, the first time they've not stood on a podium since the Atlanta Games in 1996. Catherine Granger is trying to avoid a similar fate. She's won silver or gold at the last 4 games. With Vicky Thornley today, she's qualified for Thursday's double sculls final. There's almost certainly only one man who can command the presence of more than 100 cameras with a click of the fingers. And unlike many others, Usain Bolt seems to relish the attention.
I like to entertain because that's what people come out to see, especially these guys. They like when I do crazy stuff and stuff like that. So I'm just saying, it's what I do. I try to entertain and make it different.
Irrepressible as ever, the next time you see him join a conga, you wouldn't bet against him having a few more gold medals around his neck.
So Steve, Bolt's arrived, but let's talk about Team GB. 4 medals so far. How pleased or otherwise will they be with that?
Mark, I think they'll be fairly pleased. I mean, the cupboard might look a little bit bare at the moment, but if you make a comparison with London 2012, at the end of day 4, in London. Team GB had 4 medals and no golds. If we have a look at how we're doing, Team GB is doing this time 4 medals, the same, and a gold, and we're only halfway through day 4, and there are plenty more medal chances tonight. One of them shortly after we go off air, David Florence in the canoe slalom. He's qualified for that final in the last 30 minutes or so. We spoke to UK Sport, who fund all Olympic sports today. They say they're happy, they believe that Team GB is on course, and they asked everyone to remember that in Olympic medal terms, Team GB are notoriously slow starters.
All right, Steve, thanks very much indeed.
Well, staying with the Olympics, and the outpouring of delight that greeted the first gold medal for the host nation, Brazil, earlier today was, of course, to be expected.
Yes, but these were especially emotional scenes because Rafaela Silva's journey to Olympic glory began in the notorious Rio slum known as the City of God. Ian Payne reports.
Oh, what a magnificent moment in the marvellous city!
Rafaela Silva's victory will probably be one of the seminal stories of these games. Not only was it the host nation's first gold medal, it was also a victory over poverty and racism. I think it can serve as an example to children from poor communities. A child from the favela with no hope can end up somewhere. Silva was brought up in an overcrowded and underprivileged Rio favela called the City of God, made famous by a movie about it.
To tell a story the world needs to know.
She escaped its prevalent crime-ridden lifestyle by enrolling at one of the local judo training schools. At the London 2012 Games, she was disqualified during her bout and received bitter racial abuse. She almost retired, but now this. She beat racism, as one Brazilian paper put it this morning. It's a gold medal that will be as celebrated in the country's poorest areas as in the hall itself. Perhaps the most significant gold a Silva will ever win. Ian Payne, ITV News.
Great story. Still to come on the ITV Evening News. All the rage in Rio, but does cupping really work?
And a special investigation into the dangers of modern air pollution. Those stories and more of the day's news after the break. Join us then. Hello and welcome back. Campaigners are planning legal action against the government over the levels of air pollution in the UK. They say the failure to reduce pollution quickly enough is putting public health in danger. The deadly smogs of the 1950s, caused by smoke from coal being burned in homes and factories, prompted the Clean Air Act of 1956. Now, though, it's exhaust fumes which are causing new problems. And though modern air pollution is much less visible, it does remain a killer. Up to 40,000 people die prematurely every year from causes where air pollution plays a significant part. While the UK has broken European Union air pollution limits every year since 2010. Our science correspondent Alok Char investigates.
Sarah Bentley and her 2-year-old son Rowan are on their way to a baby playgroup. They walk this route almost every day, and it takes them along typical, busy city roads with their heavy, polluted air. To help them understand their exposure, today, Rowan and Sarah are carrying some high-tech equipment.
This is an air pollution monitor, and this will help us measure the air quality. We're going to put one on you and one on the buggy.
London's air is infamously bad. The capital breached internationally agreed safe levels within just a few days of the start of this year. Cities across the country, Birmingham, Manchester and Leeds, are just as bad.
And then every so often we're getting these peaks.
In the lab, Dr. Abigail Whitehouse charts the pollution exposure over the course of an hour.
There are points where the orange in particular is higher.
And that's the buggy, that's the child.
Exactly, because the buggy's at a lower level, so it's in a different area right next to the road, it's got a higher level of air pollution exposure.
What happens to a child if they're growing up in this?
So we know that it actually starts even before you're born. The problem is that if you're exposed to that for the whole of your childhood, you never get your full lung growth. Your lungs will never get to the right size.
It makes you feel like bursting into tears, really. As a parent, you do the best for your child. And just by living here, you're exposing them to a lifetime risk of ill health.
Tiny particles and nitrous oxides from vehicle exhausts can aggravate conditions including asthma, bronchitis, heart disease and lung cancer. Ian Kenworthy lives in a village just outside Manchester. He has reduced lung function and trips to the city can be a nightmare.
When we're going to Manchester on the train, I'm coughing, I'm very short of breath because of the pollution. If you got really out of breath running for a bus or even running a marathon or whatever, if you think of being like that and not recovering from being short of breath, that is exactly what it's like to live with.
The problems are clear, but is the government doing enough to fix it?
As far as the government is concerned, Greenpeace is asking that the government actually commit to a clean air zone. And such a policy would be, the objective of such a policy would be to actually phase out the most polluting vehicles off our roads. This will obviously have to be supplemented by an increased public transport network because it's cheaper and cleaner.
Any action will take years to implement. On the ground, meanwhile, the reality of the bad city air is hitting home. Alok Jha, ITV News.
And tomorrow, Alok will be reporting from Copenhagen, where the government has shown just how dramatically air pollution can be reduced. But in the meantime, more of the day's news now. And Andy Burnham has won the contest to be Labour's candidate in the first Greater Manchester mayoral election. The Shadow Home Secretary was immediately installed as favourite to win.
At least 10 people were injured after an explosion destroyed 3 houses in Ashton-under-Lyne. A family of 3 had to jump from one of the wrecked properties after the blast.
And an RAF helicopter has burst into flames after crash landing on a mountaintop in Snowdonia. All 5 people on board got out safely before the start of the fire, caused by an engine problem.
Now, it is, by any standards, a rather costly bit of business. Manchester United bought back a player for £89 million today, having sold him 4 years ago for just over £1 million. The painstaking and much publicised transfer of French star Paul Pogba for that world record fee was quietly finalised in the small hours of this morning. But despite the lack of razzmatazz, this is, as Damon Green reports, a really big deal.
A player who can do this at a major international tournament
It's a fabulous header from Pogba and France are 2 up.
is going to be a target for any top club. The fact is, Manchester United spotted Paul Pogba 7 years ago, and this is the second time he signed for them. But this time it's costing almost £90 million.
Well, it's like I just came back home and I just went for a holiday. It looks like I went for a holiday. I come back home, I'm happy.
The French midfielder first came to United as a 16-year-old, and he impressed Sir Alex Ferguson enough on the training ground to earn him a chance in the first team. Since leaving, he spent 4 years at Juventus and won 4 Italian titles, becoming a player any club would want. The last time Paul Pogba left Old Trafford, it wasn't exactly on the best of terms. But if at that time he felt undervalued by Manchester United, that's certainly not a problem he has anymore. This man used to be Manchester United's record signing. The £56,000 he cost in 1963 is less than 2 days' wages for Pogba, but he's still a legend.
Clubs are getting loads of money through all this stuff all over the world, and United being the biggest and the most popular worldwide, they can probably afford to pay anything, really.
Across the city, United's Manchester rivals were spending nearly £50 million on Everton and England defender John Stones. A few million more gets you a midfielder who actually got to the final of Euro 2016, and while he only got a loser's medal there, United fans will be hoping he can soon do better than that. Damon Green, ITV News, at Old Trafford.
And finally, you may have noticed a number of athletes displaying odd marks on their bodies at these Olympics. The dark red circles have given rise to some speculation. Is this perhaps some kind of fashionable Olympic tattoo?
Well, no. The answer is it's a health fad called cupping, in which the blood flow is supposedly helped by using suction on the skin. Sally Lockwood explains.
There's little way of hiding your cupping marks if you're a swimmer. Michael Phelps' purple bruises drew almost as much attention as his 19th gold medal win on Sunday. Other athletes in Rio were spotted with similar marks, and there was a surge in searches online, with viewers trying to work out what they were. Cupping is an ancient Chinese therapy popular with the likes of Gwyneth Paltrow. Jennifer Aniston snapped with the same trademark spots. But it's not just the rich and famous. This clinic has seen a rise in business since the cupping coverage in Rio.
Since Michael Phelps has been using it, we've seen a marked increase in inquiries.
Now, obviously, it looks very strange. What are the benefits of cupping?
So it draws the blood to these areas, reduces the stagnation, increases the blood flow in the area. That in turn kicks in an immune response from the body, and patients are seeing some real benefits from it.
These special vacuum cups are used to suck up the skin in a kind of reverse massage. It's said to promote healing and relieve tension. Sean is a plumber and is here for his sore shoulder.
Does it not hurt?
My shoulder blade hurts, but the actual cupping doesn't hurt at all now.
But there are cupping sceptics, like this professor of pharmacology, who say it's all a fad.
It's really just hocus pocus. Cupping's hardly been tested at all. It's desperately implausible, of course. Why should sucking up a bit of skin do anything to you?
Nevertheless, cupping has made its mark at Rio, and its impact could last far longer. The marks on the skin, though, last about a week. Sally Lockwood, ITV News.
Very good. It works. It does work.
It works. Well, it works. Ragioma's here at 10.
I think. But from all the team here, have a very good night. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.